More on Bidenomics and the inconvenient truth that rents are going much higher. Hello, this is Chart GPT. Today, to do a little bit more on this Bidenomics about people often talking about buying versus renting in America. Here's a long-term chart. You can see that the red line there is what the cost to rent on a monthly basis. It's kind of a median versus buying a house. And, they pretty much have tracked closely. And of course, I've kind of extended this where I had the question mark here. But, recently the cost to buy because of inflation of house pricing, we're in kind of a bubble. Plus, the interest rates have made the cost to buy now on a monthly basis much more expensive than rents, even though rents have gone up dramatically. So what is it? The last read here was $1,845 a month to rent and $2,697 to buy. And those pretty much tracked evenly throughout the years since the 1970s. So the question is, those probably will kind of reversion to the mean there. So either the cost to buy has to come dramatically down, or the cost to rent will have to dramatically rise. I would say it'll probably be a combination of the both, but it'll probably be more on the renter side, because in order for the cost to buy to come down, they'll have to dramatically reduce the rates, which then will cause inflation, or they're going to have a huge housing crisis, which would obviously cause a pretty good recession similar to 2008. My guess is that they'll probably lower rates, pump the money, and which will cause the rents to rise significantly. So to meet that gap, my guess is that the rents will rise more than the cost to buy dramatically drop. Of course, a lot of people would have a disagreement on that. Of course, that's why they call it a market. Look, but the thing is that while even though it's the difference between over the years have been virtually the same, owning versus renting in terms of the monthly outlays, they've been fairly, they rise above each other, but pretty much consistent. That being said, obviously, if you've owned a home back in the 1970s, let's say a home of $25,000 would have increased over 1,000% there, 1,500% in fact, and you've made money in terms of your assets. So the people obviously that have purchased have made money, and obviously the renters have nothing since 1970, and the people that own homes have made a lot of money, even though their monthly outlays have been pretty much even, except until recently. Is why obviously buying tends to be better than renting, even though there's obviously the highs and lows. Look at home ownership in America. It's around 65%. So those 40% of the people that have been renting have been suffering quite dramatically. And of course, this has led to a lot of the wealth inequality gap, because obviously if you're on the 40% renter, which tends to be on the lower socioeconomic classes, they have not kept pace with those that have owned. And of course, with our Marxist governments that have been coming in recently, more socialist, there's going to be a demand to even that gap. So one of the ideas that they're talking about is what they call unrealized capital gains. And here's a quick chart to kind of give you the idea that normally when you have a sales price, it's the sales price minus the purchase price, and that gets you the taxable amount. Or if it's your principal residence, you can roll it over so you don't have to pay that. So that's been a boon for homeowners. So if they go to an unrealized capital gains, they may ask you to have current fair value and make you pay the tax on the unrealized profits that you may, even if you don't sell it. What that means to the taxpayer is that they'll either have to pay it, which could be considerable. Obviously being taxed on $390,000 would be quite high in that previous example in terms of the median. Or be forced to sell or refinance it to pay that. Now you may think, oh, this is insane. There's been some attempts over the last 4 or 5 years. There's been discussion of it because they want to even out the benefit so that the renters don't get hammered so much. Now keep in mind, if we hadn't had the inflation that we had, the renters would have been okay. I mean, there would have been no advantage if it wasn't for inflation. So that's why inflation is really a benefit to the upper end socioeconomic classes. The lower socioeconomic classes haven't been able to benefit from that, so that's been a problem. So, you look at there's a Supreme Court hearing coming up on whether unrealized gains are going to be constitutionally real or not, because if this changes, this is going to dramatically change the real estate market over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years if it should come to be. Check out the AI and give you an indication of the advantage and disadvantage of the unrealized capital gains, what that means to the economy, as well as take our online poll. Do you think that unrealized capital gains become a reality or not? Oh dear if it does. Don't forget to subscribe.